so I'm going to jump, which keeps them stuck at a, I'm on a diet. You're looking at the superego is too dominant. So now you guys come on mute. So, all right, so moving on, we're going to talk about attachment. Which one was the most popular? I think everyone said, because you guys actually.
Okay, got it.
You guys. All right, so I'm going to jump into, we're going to talk about Freud. We jumped into Freud a little bit yesterday because it kind of bled into some of the other categories and topics. But as you know, Freud is all about psychosexual development. We've already talked about cognitive development. We've talked about psychosocial development. So these are some of the things that we've already hit on. And now we're going to move into Freud and talk about his 5 stages. All right. So when we're looking at Freud, you have the oral stage. Someone made a really good point yesterday. They said, is it a possibility things can happen in someone's life which keeps them stuck at a certain stage so they don't elevate and move to different stages? And that's very much possible. So that's why I tell you not to be fixated so much on the age. Although for certain theorists, it's really important to understand the age, pretty much for all of them, but don't get wrapped up when you see the age of a person and just feel like, oh my God, it has to be this stage. According to Freud, he stopped right after around puberty. So you stayed, once you get to the genital stage, you pretty much stayed at that stage. Pretty much all of us are in the genital stage, according to Freud. All right, so Freud, those are the 3 things. You have the id, the ego, and the superego. That is really important to understand and see because this is popping up on the exam more. To make it easier, the id is the pleasure principle, the ego is the reality principle, and then you have the superego, which is the moral principle. So whenever you're going through that, look all the way to the right, look at the examples. I want a piece of cake now. That is the id. That means the pleasure principle. You want to be satisfied right then and there in the moment. You don't have it's nothing clicking saying maybe I should wait, or maybe this isn't the time, or maybe I need to hold off, or this doesn't go with my goals, or whatever it may be. And then you have the ego where it's, I'll eat a slice of cake after I have dinner. So you have a little bit more self-control there. You're more conscious about what's taking place. You're able to think rationally, logically, and that's kind of what's taking place there. And then you have the superego, which is the moral principle. And that's like, it'd be wrong to eat the whole thing. I'm on a diet. I shouldn't be doing this right now. You have a lot more control and you're striving more towards that perfection piece. So those are the 3 different ones when you're looking at the id, superego, and this id, ego, and superego. And some tips. So when you're looking at impulsivity, that's an id dominance. If a client is acting reckless, seeking immediate gratification, then you know that you're dealing with that id. If somebody is excessively guilty, rigid perfectionism, kind of harsh and judge themselves really harshly, you're looking at the superego is too dominant. So of course, with all of these things, you want to have a balance with it. But this is what happens when there's no balance and they're at the far end of the spectrum with any of these. All right, we talked about defense mechanisms. That all falls up inside of Freud for sure. So a lot of you guys are familiar with defense mechanisms. I always tell people don't try to memorize them all, but you should really have a clear understanding of a lot of them. So when it pops up on the exam, if it gives you an example of sublimation, and if you sublimation, and then there's another one, say reaction formation, those 2 right there. So when we're looking at some other defense mechanisms, you'll see the denial, splitting, somatization, projection. Projection's another really popular one. I always tell people think about a projector. I think everybody is up here is old enough to remember projectors, but back in the day, we didn't have all the computer savvy. So the teachers used to put the stuff on the projector, and whatever they put on the projector to show on the wall or whatever screen, think of the same thing, projection. Like whatever you have here, you're pushing off out on there. So it's that is kind of how you think about it. So if I'm feeling a certain way, I'm saying someone else is feeling that way. I'm projecting or putting off what I'm feeling onto someone else. So that's why I use a projector. You have that word, project, and that's what you're doing. All right. Who wants to knock out this question? Now you guys come off mute. So whoever wants to come off and answer this question.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
A 45-year-old male client is referred for alcohol use disorder. He tells the social worker, I only drink on weekends, and besides, it helps me be more creative with my painting. My boss drinks way more than I do. Which defense mechanism is the client primarily demonstrating? A, denial. B, rationalization. C, intellectualization. D, displacement.
Say B.
B, rationalization.
All right, so I see a lot of people posting all kind of answers in the chat, so it doesn't seem like everybody's understanding that and getting it.
A.
So I have a few people saying A, a few people have said B, rationalization, and a few people have said D, displacement. All right, anybody who have not answered or feel like they want to be able to justify their answer, why they chose it and why they think it's right?
I picked
My name is Lawana. I picked B because he is making excuses why he is drinking on the weekends. He's not, because if it was displacement, he's not displacing any kind of behaviors onto anything else.
Intellectualization.
Thank you. He's not taking any facts and trying to like find reasons why things didn't happen. And he's not the statement doesn't show that he's not in denial. I mean, he knows that he drinks, but right at this point, based on the scenario, he's making excuses why he drinks on the weekend and how it quote unquote supposed to help him with his painting.
Okay. Thanks for explaining. I appreciate that. I love the explanation of how you get it down.
Right. I'll add something to that too. I think where the rationalization comes in is he's using someone else and saying, hey, my boss does this too, so therefore it's okay for me to do it.
Okay. Now, those are the people that are in favor for B. Can I have some people speak up to pick denial? Okay, I guess they're going to change their answer. Anybody for displacement? A lot of people pick D. Anybody have one for
I selected displacement because displacement's definition is redirecting emotions from original source to the target, to a safer target. So in that last sentence, it says, my boss drinks way more than I do. So I felt that he was putting it on a safer target, taking it away from himself.
Okay. Does anybody agree with that, or does it make sense to you guys? All right. So we have one person for displacement. Anybody else changing the answer? Like you thought it was something, now you're changing it. Because a whole lot of you picked displacement and denial, and now I don't hear anybody saying anything.
I mean, I could see why people pick denial, but no, yeah, I pick B, but I can see why people pick denial. It sounds like it.
Okay. Perfect. So just giving people the opportunity to see the correct answer and why it was rationalization. I think you did an amazing job. I think you said LaWanda explaining it. She did an amazing job. Perfect of how I would want you guys to explain it. We're at the point in our studying and the points of our lives and careers that when someone asks you a question, you need to stand on business and be able to explain exactly why it is you chose that. And if you can't, then that means we don't really have enough knowledge base or understanding of it. So I do want to go back because a few people did click displacement. I'm not sure who was justifying why it was displacement. But again, I think you got confused with hearing the boss and taking it to a family member or someone else that at home. But displacement is shifting your feelings onto a safer target. He wasn't shifting his feelings onto the boss. He was just using the boss as an example of doing a similar behavior. So he wasn't yelling at, his spouse and saying, I'm mad at you because my boss did this. It was no target that he was actually yelling at or acting out on. He was just using them as an example. So I think that's kind of what might have confused a few of you guys with the displacement piece, thinking because I used that example before about displacement and the boss. But it was clearly about putting your feelings onto a safer target. So instead of yelling at your boss, you yell at your spouse, your kids, or, the dog or something like that. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about Kohlberg, moral development. This is right or wrong. So if you're in your workbook, we're on Kohlberg moral development. And when it comes to moral development, you have a few stages. You have the obedience and punishment, individualism and exchange, interpersonal and relationships, maintaining social order, social contract, and universal principles. So you can look at what's happening. Normally when you see Kohlberg, you see the three main levels. You see pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. That is what you're likely to see on exams, studying, practicing, and so forth. That is what you're likely to see. So when you're in that pre-conventional, they basically avoid getting in trouble and the rules are fixed. So I don't want to steal the drug because I go to jail. That's pretty much the thinking. Think about it, somebody between 4 and 10 years old. That is pretty much pre-conventional. They understand obedience and punishment and what will happen if they did a thing. Going on to developmental expectations. So when you're looking at that pre-conventional, it's normal to focus on obedience and punishment. When you're in adolescence and most adults, the focus shifts to social approval, the rules, and law and order. And when you get to be mature adults, you focus on universal ethical principles and social contracts. So this is pretty much how you go through, we're going to say the spectrum. We're going through the spectrum of developmentally how we do things morally. I guess our morals. And this is how it kind of develops according to Kohlberg. All right. So here goes a practice question. Let me hear you. Can you answer this one for me, Dora? I'm gonna call on some people and see if you can read this question and call on it, just so everybody doesn't come off mute at the same time.
Yes. It says a 14-year-old boy is caught shoplifting. When asked why he did it, he tells a social worker, and everyone does it. Besides, my friends would think I'm lame if I didn't take something. I don't think it's obedience and punishment because he's not afraid of it. Good boy, nice girl. Nope. I'm going to go with self-interest, pre-conventional. I was kind of torn between B and D, but he's not justifying why he's doing it and doesn't have a good cause. So I'm going to go with B.
Okay. All right. Anybody want before that I did not call on that want to take a stab at, or either just kind of write your answer down as we go through the screen and see what the correct answer is. And it is conventional. So let's see what it says. The client's primary motivation is social approval. Friends would think I'm lame. That was the number one thing that when you said that I thought you were, the social approval piece. So in a personal relationship, it aligns with the good boy, the nice girl, and so forth. So going back, let's look at that question again. The 14-year-old is caught shoplifting. When asked why he did it, he tells the social worker, everyone does it. Besides, my friends would think I'm lame if I didn't take it. According to Kohlberg, which level of moral development is the client demonstrating? So a lot of you guys said, which one was the most popular? I think everyone said, did you guys say B and D? Did anyone say A or C? You did, Dottie?
It was mainly B, but then
I said C. In the chat, majority C, but yeah. A lot of
Okay,
people
in the chat, a lot of people said C. Okay, yeah, I was in chat. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So yeah, so just making sure overall you have an understanding of it. So let's look at the rationale for this one since we were kind of split. It says, why not A or B, pre-conventional? He isn't focused on avoiding punishment, which would be the first stage. That's the younger stage that we see, or getting a direct personal reward, which would be stage 2. His focus is on his reputation. Why not D? He isn't breaking the law to serve a higher moral principle, like I'm going to steal this loaf of bread so I can feed my family. That would be like doing something to break the law for a higher moral principle or injustice and human rights. There's a lot of different examples there. He's doing it to look cool, social approval. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about attachment theory. This is pretty much the foundation of relationships. I do a lot of going over this, especially in couples therapy, because it's really important to understand your attachment style and how you show up in relationships. But where it stems from is what we need to understand and know as being social workers. So there are 4 different types. You have the secure, you have the anxious, you have the avoidant, and you have the disorganized. So when we're looking at individuals for that secure style, that is pretty much where everybody aims to be, wants to be, or sometimes believes they are. And that is pretty much when you had a caregiver and you were growing up, your caregiver was pretty much consistent. They were responsive, they were warm, and they were attuned to your needs. That is pretty much what they got and what they received as a child. When the child got upset, when their parents left, they were soothed. When they returned, the parent reassured them, I'm back. They gave them that safe base. So when you're looking at adults, they become more trusting, they have lasting relationships, good self-esteem, they're comfortable with intimacy. This is pretty much the outcome that you see in adults. They have healthy boundaries, they're able to seek support, and they're resilient.
A 20-year-old female client reports a history of severe childhood neglect. She describes her relationships as chaotic with a constant push-pull dynamic. In therapy, she initially idolized the social worker, but because hostile and devaluing after the worker had to reschedule an appointment.
So which attachment style do you think she's demonstrating?
I would say D.
All right, I see a lot of A's and D's in the chat. I see disorganized and I see avoidant, dismissive. All right, anybody think differently than what Clarissa said and want to give a stab at it?
Yeah, rather, I would say A, disorganized.
Okay, you're saying A.
Chaotic relationships.
Okay. So you're saying chaotic. Okay. Is the key to why you're picking A. Okay. All right. Let's see. Jasmine, what are you thinking? Yep. You gotta come off mute and tell us. I saw you reading it, but what are you thinking?
I'm gonna say A.
A, okay. I see a lot of A's. I can see a little bit when the chat pops up. So you got this 28-year-old reports a history of severe childhood neglect. She describes her relationship as chaotic with a constant push and pull dynamic. In therapy, she initially idolized the social worker, but became hostile and devaluing after the worker had to reschedule the appointment. Classic what behaviors? Nina, what kind of behaviors is that?
Borderline personality.
Okay. What did you pick, Nina, as the answer?
I was kind of torn because this right here, she's abandoned. So I'm thinking, and she's clingy. But you just understand that disorganized is abandonment. They fear being avoided. So,
No. I was going back to the chart for you guys to see.
Okay. So I was torn between those two of the rejection, the avoidant, and the fear. So I'm going to go with anxious, ambivalent, because that's abandonment.
Okay, so you're going anxious, ambivalent. What are you going to say, Shakita? What are you thinking?
A.
Let's see. Let me go back. A, you're saying disorganized, fearful?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And how did you pick disorganized, faithful? What were you disorganized, faithful? What were you thinking? What made you pick that?
Because chaotic, her
Mhm.
being chaotic during the meeting, also a history of childhood abuse and neglect.
Yep. So when we went, okay, sorry, let me go back. So we see the answer right here is A, and you see disorganized A, because a lot of you put different answers in the chat. So I went back to the chart, and what does it say? Because you guys actually
Oh,
said,
chaotic.
I'm shocked.
Got it.
You guys,
Okay.
you said chaotic, and I said it's classic what? What did I say, Dami? I said it's classic what signs?
BPD.
So y'all,
It's
see, everybody,
borderline.
it's a lot of it's a lot of Damis in here. I'm sorry, Dami. It's a whole lot of Damis.
The borderline personality disorder
And the classic and the complex trauma.
and complex.
All right. Thank you, Dami. Because I'm trying to call on individuals and y'all are just like going in on them. So yes, you're correct. I did say classic borderline. So I went back to the chart because I tried to, help y'all out. I said classic borderline. And we also can see that the individual is the abuse there. They had the chaotic child, whatever the chaotic, and I saw neglect. So automatically I'm like, oh, it's all the way at the end. So just kind of looking at that to kind of give you some more context, just for those of you that are looking at it.